Fifth quarter extra, everybody. Simone, Eli, Gerhard, Mathangani joining you as we recap the first night of the high school football season playoffs, guys. This is so exciting. We've been counting down to the postseason. Gerhard, I wasn't with you, at least in person, for week 10.
Yeah.
But we're back, man. And fifth quarter extra, we have an action-packed show, dramatic finish to so many games here in round one of the playoffs.
What I love about the high school football season is that there are only limited games that are promised. You have those games that are on your schedule, and those are the ones that you get.
Yep.
And everything else after this is a blessing. And I think for every team, whether you're the 1 seed and you've been the number 1 team in the state the entire year, or you're the 4 seed and just snuck into the playoffs barely with a winning record,
pretty much
every week this season from here on out, you just feel that blessing, and you feel, hey, these teams that have the chance to play on one more time, you feel that gratification for them, and especially our local squads.
Yes, absolutely, guys. We are going to go to Thomasville, to Jackson, to T.R. Miller, all throughout the entire area tonight, as our crews were incredible covering the round one of the high school football playoffs. We're super pumped up, but we're going to kick things off in Class 7A with a thriller over in West Mobile. Baker hosting Hewitt-Trussville in a game that had extra meeting for the Baker head coach, Juan Johnson. Let's get to these highlights, Gerhard. You know that he was fired up for this game for sure.
Yeah, I think you use that word extra, and it's kind of fitting and perfect for not only for this show, but for what happened in this game, having to go to the extra session here. This is the first half, and a great first half. It was a defensive battle. No points in the first half. I got a text exchange with our photographer, Nick Johnson, who was there, and he said this first half, like there's nobody scoring. Both high-octane offenses, but the defenses have really been the key for both these teams going into this game. Both teams allowing less than 14 points per contest. So here is the overtime. And Coach Juan Johnson, of course, he's got the ties to Hewitt-Trussville, was their offensive coordinator for the last 8 seasons there with the Huskies. And the Huskies get on the board first. It's a huge play here as Dobbins goes in the end zone, and they get that first touchdown. So it's 14-7. But Baker's very first play on offense is Juwan Springs gets into the end zone for the touchdown. So Baker now ties it up at 14. So since Baker had the ball second in the first overtime, they get the ball first in the second overtime. They're held to a field goal. Blaine Munson kicks it. 17-14 is your score right now. Hewitt-Trussville, 4th down, game on the line, botch snap. And just like that, Baker gets the win. 17-14, double overtime. And a really classy move. You'll see it here from Juan Johnson, who spent a lot of time with those guys in those white jerseys.
Immediately turns around and gives them some love, man.
100%. And you got to love that for him.
Yeah, definitely. And you know that he's hurting for the guys that he also loves. I mean, he obviously loves the Baker program. And, not just because that's who's paying his bills, but that's who he's riding with, right?
Yeah.
That's obviously what he's putting his heart and soul into. But for the last 10 years, Juan Johnson has poured his heart and soul into those guys. That just doesn't go away when you go take a different job.
Yeah.
And so for him to obviously be hugging Josh Floyd and to be hugging other Husky players, he means that. Like this game he's more excited for Baker than he is anything, but there's a little part of him that's going to hurt for you at Trussville as well. And that's because he's a good man. He's a good guy. And so hats off to Baker. We had the chance to hear from Juan Johnson after this game. Let's take a little bit of a listen here to Coach after the big win.
It's amazing. That's actually my first playoff win. This is my first year as a head coach. I can't be more proud of my kids. They've been resilient from day one. I walked in on April 1st, and we've just steadily grown and got better and better each week, got better over the summer, and ultimately we got an opportunity this time to make just one more play, and that was ultimately what we needed to win the game.
All right, so much deserved excitement there for the Baker Hornets, and this was the first time since 1984 that Baker has won a playoff game. And one, that's actually hard to even believe, given that Baker is the second biggest high school in the state of Alabama. But also, I mean, Baker's had a lot of talented guys for a long time. It's not the last time they were in the playoffs, just the last time they won a playoff game. And so, man, I mean, just for them to come in, hats off to Juan Johnson to get that done. And honestly, they play a very high level of football in the Birmingham area. And we knew that I think we hoped, would the change in the format for 7A make there be more parity in the playoffs?
Right.
But make no mistake, Region 3 and Region 2, the Auburn region, pretty evenly matched when it comes to how good these football programs are.
Right. I mean, we talked about talent from a talent level really for the large part of the season. And we said, hey, you know what? Large part of this talent is in Region 2 and Region 3. And we just knew, of course, most of the state championships over the last decade have been in those two regions.
Yep.
And so can Region 1 and Region 4, can they kind of make it up? And so they shifted the format a little bit, got a chance to get this new format. And it felt like there was some synchronicity here from the football gods, so to speak, if you believe in that thing. Like it was like the very first time that this team had won, and as you mentioned, 80s babies don't feel old, but the first time in 40 years,
That's a minute.
40-something years that this team has been in the playoffs. And it's something that you touched on earlier that I want to recap for just a second here. The history of this program wasn't lost on Juan Johnson.
Sure.
He knew just how big this win is, not just for this season, but for what this program means.
Yep.
And to do it against the same guys that he had just left earlier, it kind of ties it all in a bow. And the way they did it, the one thing that stuck out to me is the number one. They were 7-8 in the polls.
Yep.
In the final polls of the season, the pollsters had them split by 1 point, by basically one or two votes.
Yeah.
The end of the game, the ball was on the 1 yard line.
Yeah,
1 yard separated
that is the
two.
difference, and that is the difference when it comes to this game. A beautiful game, man.
Exactly.
You love it, and sometimes you don't love it. But if you are the Baker Hornets, you are loving it tonight. All right, we're going to stick in 7A, and guys, we're going to give you scores from every single Region 1 team and beyond, from 7A all the way down to 1A. So if you're just tuning in, this is fifth quarter extra. Don't worry, I got the monitor switched in the background because we started with the wrong one. Gerhard and I trying to make moves here as we go. But be sure to tune into the comments. I already see our guy Dwayne tuning in here. Dwayne McQueen, no question, big supporter of all types of football up there in the Bruton area. We're going to get to TR Miller, the number 1 ranked team in Class 3A, proving why they still were. We're going to get to Thomasville, so many schools. 5A, a lot of excitement in the Mobile area, guys. It's going to be a fun night. All right, so hang in there with us. Let's head up to Alabaster, Alabama, staying in 7A, where Daphne took on the Thompson Warriors. And obviously, we know Thompson is a powerhouse program. They won about 17 straight state championships, it felt like, but they won a lot. And quite frankly, they're not the Thompson in terms of the just only team in the show, only house there. They have a lot of, they have 3 losses this year. So they have to host a game. Daphne goes up. They fall to a tough Thompson team, but nonetheless, a lot to be excited about, a lot to be proud of when it comes to this Daphne program, because I think that they were playing their better football later in the season. And so if you're Kenny King, you're trying to get back into the playoffs. That was a big deal in and of itself because Daphne is a proud program. That's where they belong. And nonetheless, your season comes to an end in round 1, but nothing to be ashamed of and a lot to be excited about, no question, when it comes to the Daphne Trojans. Let's stay in 7A Region 1, guys, and head over to some Thursday night lights. MGM last night hosted Vestavia Hills. Now, last year, MGM won the Region 1 title, and then they went to the semifinals. So Zach Golston and company looking to make another historic run. Gotta love our old buddy here, a good friend of the program for sure, and Jared Hollins here, the former MGM quarterback now at South Alabama, checking in with his alma mater against Vestavia. But hats off to the Rebels and head coach Robert Evans getting it done early in this game. I think it's like a 2-score lead, but back comes Shondell Harris into the end zone. He goes. Eventually this game is going to get cut to a 1-touchdown deficit for MGM, but it would be Vestavia Hills doubling up MGM at home to win this game 42-21 and knock off the Vikings in the playoffs. Definitely, I want to say it's a disappointing end. It's not a disappointing season for MGM. It's a disappointing end to the season for MGM, given that a year you won the region, and a year ago, man, you got that taste of going to the show. You're going to semifinals, which to them, that was a historic run.
Yeah,
so much to be proud of for Zach Golston. Don't want to knock that at all.
Right.
This was one of those that you wish you could have back.
Yeah, and I think there's just a bad matchup. It just felt like this matchup where Vestavia was going well, playing into it. Honestly, there's a team that likes to run the football. Honestly, got us a great start. Shout out to Charles Taft for Vestavia. 4 touchdowns on the day.
Had a game.
Had a really good game. Shondell Harris and company, we knew that this team lost a lot. Jared Hollins, obviously, to start, and some on the offensive line, but they had a lot of these players back. So, yes, you do want to keep it in perspective. This is a word that you've used throughout the course of the last part of the season. I think we have to keep going back to it because, in perspective, yes, comparing it back to last year, yes, there's a point where you might think it's a downfall. However, it was a great season overall, but like you said, tough ending.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The 4 seed in Region 1 was Fairhope. They played yesterday as well as the Pirates traveled up to powerhouse program Hoover. And Hoover has had more kind of a magical year, so to speak, because they started the season losing their head coach to a controversial situation over at practice in the offseason. Then Chip English comes in, wins the region. I don't think anyone was really expecting that. Then they go win a playoff game. On the other side, if you're Fairhope, you go to Hoover and you put in a very, very solid effort on the road. It's so hard to play at the Hoover Met. What a great environment for high school football. But Fairhope loses this game 35-10. But again, if you're Tim Carter and company, you're excited about what this effort can do for your program as you move forward.
I think 3 wins last year. Now you're in the playoffs. I think there's something to build on if you're Coach Tim Carter and the squad here. Great pick here in the end zone. Blake Westry's had a really good season overall for them. You have Brian Martin. You have Jackson Robertson, who had a really good year as well.
Yep.
I think that stair step, that elevation, keep improving. I think that is kind of the motto there for the Pirates. Proud program, and honestly, nothing to be ashamed of this season as they got a little bit better. However, it ends in the first round.
All right, so let's recap very quickly before we get into a very dramatic 6A, just first round of the playoffs for sure. When you look at 7A, Gerhard, as far as Region 1 teams, the only team moving on to the second week of the playoffs is going to be Baker with the huge double overtime victory over Hewitt-Trussville in a win that means so much to Hornets head coach Juan Johnson, who spent the last 10 years as a Hewitt assistant coach. So they will move on, and they will get who?
Enterprise.
Yep. So Enterprise, coached by former Spanish Fort head coach Ben Blackman, of course, won a state title there with the Toros back in the day.
Right.
A program that's done really, really well over there in the Wiregrass for sure. What does the rest of 7A look like as far as what is the quarterfinals for 7A?
I wish we could say stay in the north and stay in the south, but that's already all jumbled up because of the playoff format. So we'll give you the sides of the bracket. You mentioned Baker Enterprise. The other game will be Thompson and Auburn. That game is at Auburn. That's one side of the bracket. The other side of the bracket, it will be Vestavia Hills going to Central Phoenix City.
Okay.
And then Opelika going to Hoover. So those are the matchups going into the next round.
Gotcha. All right, good stuff, guys. Let's keep things rolling now. We are going to take a look at 6A. The only reason we're not going to start with number 1 team is because that's Saraland's number 1 team, not only in 6A in the state, but also in Region 1. They won yesterday, so let's look at Friday's action before we get to the Spartans. So Saraland fans, hang with me tight just for a moment. Let's head to the Hill in Spanish Fort, where I think that the Spanish Fort Toros got everything they wanted against Benjamin Russell tonight, G.
Yeah, this is a Wildcat program that is a perennial power in Class 6A, but this is a great start to this football game. This is 4th and 8. Aiden Schamberger to Justin Bonner to Jacob Lamone. 4th down, you get a touchdown. Trickeration for Coach Chase Smith and company being able to get that touchdown here, but Benjamin Russell responds, and it felt, Simone, like a heavyweight fight. You know, it just felt like haymaker after haymaker, one after the other. So Benjamin Russell ties it up. We're now all knotted up at 7. Then a little bit later on, they take the lead, Benjamin Russell does. Pass here from Aaliyah Johnson over to Rodney Greer. It's now 14-7. However, Spanish Fort bounces right back. This is one of the plays you could vote for our play of the week, presented by Doctor. This is big play here by Sawyer Wilson. He's been a huge playmaker for this football team.
This dude flies, man.
Yeah,
like, shout out to Sawyer Wilson, because you blink and he will make one cut and then he's 50 yards up the field and you don't even know what you're missing. Shout out to Lee Atherton, our photographer, for catching it every time he does, too.
He certainly does. And that was the tying score right there for Benjamin Russell. Johnson to Greer once again, but then Spanish Fort comes right back. It's Aiden Schamberger, Nehemiah Hickson. He's another big playmaker for this Toros football program. That tied it up at 21. So we had a tough little battle there in the first half, but then Spanish Fort pulls away in the second half, 49-35, the final scores at Toros move on.
But it was close for a while, no doubt about it. But Spanish Fort gets it done as they are moving on, and they will play who? Hueytown. Where do we know where that game is going to be?
That game is at Hueytown, according to our friends at the Historical Society.
Yes, okay. So we will see. It's very, if you follow high school football, you know that it's not easy to follow the brackets and what things look like in the playoffs and what it actually means to move on and to who hosts and who doesn't host. So
right, yeah.
It's always a challenge.
And it gets harder as the weeks go along. It's which one goes
Who's
first?
gone further, who's,
time travel and all that kind of stuff.
But as far as we believe, Spanish Fort will be on the road at Hueytown. All right, speaking of on the road, how about St. Paul's? This is a team that, as Ham Barnett will remind you every time you see him, they have 4A numbers, but they're playing in 6A Region 1, one of the hardest regions in the state, no doubt about that. And the Saints are at Helena. Not an easy place to play, and a very proud program. Richie Busby does a really, really good job up there at Helena, but St. Paul's was up 17-0 at halftime and then did not relinquish any effort here. Take a look at the second half highlights that we got from our sister station WIAT in Birmingham. Obviously a defensive effort there early on with the sack you saw a moment ago by Oliver Cross. Then the botched punt there goes over the head of the punter. It was 19-0. Then, of course, he handed off to the one and only Tank Jones. Looks like a man among boys every time he plays. 26-0 at that point, and that was your final score. So Ham Barnett and company head to Helena. And that's, I mean, Helena's not some just gimme game for sure.
Yeah.
They're the 3 in Region 1. They go play the 2 up there in, I don't even know what region number that is, but you go on the road. You travel 4 hours to Helena. You get the victory. Now you're advancing to round 2. And once you get the monkey off your back, so to speak, when it comes to getting a playoff win, you feel like you can kind of, all right, breathe a sigh of relief and then kind of reset the deck, see what's ahead. What is ahead?
Yeah, and up ahead for this football team will be the Hueytown, not Hueytown. That would be Pike Road. That game is at home for St. Paul. So Pike Road will come to St. Paul's.
Okay, so St. Paul is getting to return home in round 2 of the 6A playoffs.
What stood out to me was the defense.
Yeah, man.
Once again, another shutout. And I just counted here 7 times this season, Simone, they've allowed a touchdown or less to their opponent. When you have that kind of defense, it takes some pressure off of your offense. And that's been the question for this football team. Can they generate enough offense? They certainly did so tonight.
Yeah, no doubt about it. If you're just tuning in, guys, we appreciate the viewership. I know it's midnight. Who cares? It's round 1 of the high school football playoffs. No better time than this to talk about the playoffs. So hang in there with us. We are going through all of our Region 1 teams. We'll talk about some statewide games as well. We've been through 7A Region 1. We're making our way through 6A Region 1 right now. Shout out to Robert Gray checking in. How did Leroy do? They won. We'll show you the highlights in just a minute. We had our crew in Leroy getting some great highlights there from the defending 1A state champs. All right, let's head to Spain Park, where I don't think a lot of folks, myself included, thought the Yellow Jackets would go up and have a whole lot of effort, or not effort, a whole lot of success, I should say, because you knew they were going to have the effort.
For sure.
You know that Coach David Faulkner at McGill-Tulane is going to get this team prepared. What would that look like against an undefeated top 5 ranked Spain Park team? Well, let me show it to you, because Spain Park is feeling great about themselves right now. Spain Park is on one. They're 10-0 going into this game. They came out. They took an early lead. I think it was 14-0 at one point, Gerhard. But McGill-Tulane said, all right, we're not backing down. We're here to make some noise in the postseason, and they certainly did.
Yeah, the Jaguars came in as a top 5 team in the state. That's LaDarian Miller going into the end zone for the touchdown for the Yellow Jackets. And then this one tied it up here, Simone. I botched this one on air. Let me get it right here on Fifth Quarter Extra. This is Andrew Murchison, quarterback keeper. Really tough guy. Second year in this offense. Coach David Faulkner has been singing his praises ever since spring football.
Deservedly so.
Exactly. And that tied it up at 21 apiece. And like you said, this one was another one of those haymaker kind of fights. And Tim Vakakis and company is a really strong football team.
Yep.
But shout out to McGill-Tulane. They went up there 250 miles, as you mentioned, 4 hours.
On the road.
24-21 was your score at the half. However, Spain Park does get the win there, but great effort by the Jackets.
Yeah, I mean, the Jackets led by, I think, 11 at some point in the second half. And so shout out to what Coach Faulkner has been able to do now in year 2 there at McGill-Tulane. Just when he got there, they had missed the playoffs. And, then he gets the Jackets back into the playoffs in kind of a miraculous win over Spanish Fort that nobody thought they were going to get. And so much to be excited about if you are McGill-Tulane, the Yellow Jacket faithful, and what is being built, or rebuilt, I should say. Credit to what has been built there before, but rebuilt there at McGill-Tulane. All right, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about 6A Region 1. The king of them all at this point is Saraland Spartans. They were at home yesterday against Chelsea G. You were out there for this game.
Yeah, this was one of those games where you knew Saraland, they have one thing in mind. It's that blue map. They were inches or a couple yards away last year, lost to Clay Chalkville. Will this team be focused here in round 1? Well, they certainly show so. This is the first play of the game. KJ Lacey to CD Gill. That kind of set the tone for this football game.
First play, I'd say,
Chelsea really never recovered. They played hard in this football game, I won't lie, but it's one of the things where they were just outmanned. Yeah. And you obviously see the Auburn commit, Antonio Coleman, come in with a big play there. It was almost impossible for Chelsea to run the football. That set up the offense once again. Lacey to Sante McWilliams for the touchdown, clicking on all cylinders. And, Coach Jeff Kelly, he's got a very steely-eyed look as far as what he wants his team to do.
Does not matter what the score is. Does not matter what's happening. He
wants his team to execute.
Dialed in.
He certainly does. CD Gill again. KJ Lacey, nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns on the day last night for this Saraland football team. Once again, eyeing a blue map. But however, you got to get it done week by week, and they certainly did so. Chelsea, they came out to play. Play really hard, play really well in spots, but just outmanned by one of, if you consider, the best teams in the entire state, regardless of classification.
At least one of the teams that was in the game the last 2 years. So let's go over 6A Region 1. Saraland punches their ticket to round 2. The Spartans will advance to play
McAdory
at home. So Saraland is back home.
That's right.
To play McAdory. Mm-hmm. So the Yellow Jackets program had a lot of success just over the years, but as of late, Saraland definitely the team to beat when it comes to that matchup. The 2 in that region.
I believe it's a rematch from last year, a playoff game from last year as well. I'll go back and look, but I think so.
Yeah, no, I feel confident about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one isn't one that was so totally jumbled up from a year ago, like we are in 7A for sure.
Yeah, this is a first round game last year.
Okay, Spanish Fort beats Benjamin Russell tonight. On the Hill, a back-and-forth affair. Spanish Fort is going on to round 2, and the Toros will get
Hueytown.
That's going to be at Hueytown,
That's
we
right.
said? Okay.
That game's at Hueytown.
Good stuff. And St. Paul's goes on the road to beat Helena. Mm-hmm. They earn the opportunity to come back and play at E.E. Delaney Stadium next week, and they will get
Pike Road.
All right, good stuff. And hats off to McGill Tulane for a very, very great effort against Spain Park, and a lot to be proud of for sure in a tough battle there. All right, a year ago, every single 5A Region 1 team punched their ticket to round 2 of the playoffs. If you remember, UMS Wright was the 4 seed in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They went on the road, beat Central of Clay County, who was a little banged up. Doesn't matter, though, as far as the record book is concerned. Terry Curtis and company get a big victory, go into the postseason. All right, this year, they're the 4 again. We're going to start with the 4 seed in this game. Then we're going to get to Viger and Williamson, guys. But let's just talk quickly about UMS. They go on the road trying to beat a Demopolis team that had just won obviously their region.
Right.
And Terry Curtis and company get it done. I had the chance to speak with UMS guys earlier this week, kind of give them a pump-up speech about what it means to be a high school athlete. And I mean, I don't know. Terry said I did a good job.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, because if you didn't, I would have. I think it was the pep talk, but you don't see a lot of 4s beat the 1 seeds.
No.
Whatever you said Thursday night to those seniors.
Like I texted Terry tonight, I said, UMS is 1-0 after pregame speeches from Simone's. I'll see you next week. Who do we got next week?
Win one for the Gippers. Simone Life.
Who we got next week? I know if Andalusia were to win, that UMS was going to be back at home.
That's right. Andalusia did win, and Andalusia did win, so UMS Wright will get that game at home next week.
There we go. All right, so Terry Curtis and company will be returning home. Super exciting there. All right, let's head to one of the top 5 teams in the state. Viger Wolves have been incredible. They're 9-1 this season. They lost to Baker in their regular season finale, but tonight at home up against Sipsey Valley. A great shot here by our photographer Arnell Hamilton as they are kicking things off there. John McKenzie and company in Pritchard.
Yeah, he always talks about winning 5 games in a row. That's what you want to do, win 5 games in a row. They got off to a great start. That's Kingston Bush, a great interception there. Does it on his back. Excellent concentration there. And then Viger dances their way into the end zone as right here you see Jamarian Osborne, jet sweep, and then Simone,
they have athletes all over the field, man.
They're athletes, but they out-physical this football team as well. Did it both ways. Just had too many athletes for the Sipsey Valley football team. Played hard all season long, but this was just a mismatch from the jump here. The Bears quarterback throws the interception here. This is also one of our Play of the Week nominees there.
Miguel Wilson.
As Miguel Wilson takes the pick 6 into the house. This defense is honestly been one of the best parts about this football team, and John McKenzie says
this guy?
The best defense.
Who's this guy right here?
You know, you can't have a
Viger highlight reel
without number 1.
Our guy Carlos Greenpants Benjamin Jr.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is one of the fastest guys in the area, no doubt about it. Gets into the end zone as Viger is headed to round 2, and you can bet that if you are John McKenzie and you are Viger, this game's already in the rear view. You're not even taking 24 hours because they have one goal in mind, and that is to win a blue map like they did just 3 seasons ago under John McKenzie. Who is the round 2 game there for Viger?
All right, so Viger would have played at home. However, Eufaula beats Beauregard.
Really?
And so Eufaula, it will be the home team next week as Viger goes on the road there.
Dang.
So a huge win by Eufaula, and so Viger will hit the road, but I'm pretty sure they feel confident.
I'm feeling like they're gonna they feel pretty good about themselves and moving forward as they should. Another team in 5A Region 1 hot right now is Antonio Coleman and the Williamson Lions out at Ladd today, welcoming in Northside out of the Tuscaloosa area. And let's just say it didn't take long for Williamson to kind of flex their muscle in this game on both sides. No doubt about that for sure. They were already up 6-0 when this play happened here. And I'm pulling up the highlights here, guys. Jalen Scott gets the interception, returns it 85 yards for the touchdown. 12-0 at that point, Williamson. Then later, the special teams, Ellis McGaskin. I think this dude is on the field every single snap of the game for Williamson. He blocks it, picked up by Keontae Petway, headed the other way, 26-0 at that point. And Williamson gets another shutout victory this season, 46-0 over Northside. They are moving on, G. What is the future for the Lions?
You got to love the two teams that have made this second round. You have Terry Curtis, we just talked about, and Danny Horn, who is now with Central Clay County. And so Williamson will make the drive up north into that Lineville area, one of the best. I've been to that place a lot of times. I know you've covered them as well. Yep. Clay County just has some amazing football. Williamson will go on the road to face one of the greatest coaches of all time in Danny Horn, as UMS Wright is at home as well. So it's just great to see these legends that are still sticking around, still doing their thing. Yeah. And so good luck to the Lions next week in the Lineville-Ashland area.
Yes, we will see if they can continue the season there in the 5A playoffs. All right, so let's quickly recap what things look like. Also in 5A, Citronelle goes on the road, and I was getting some messages from the Citronelle faithful all throughout the week. First of all, what I want to say about Citronelle is kudos for the unbelievable, undeniable community support that has gone into this Wildcat program all year long. From Jason Ryle and his efforts and the leadership role there as the head coach for the Wildcats, he has just absolutely just willed this team and gotten them to get fired up every single week. You win huge games at home against UMS. You battle through some tough losses against Williamson. You think about that game at Ladd.
That's right.
Against Viger. But then you're the 3 in 5A Region 1. You go on the road to Shelby County, who's having like the best season they've ever had.
That's right.
You get a win in a huge defensive battle, and you bring it back. What is Citronelle's future? Tell me that they're back home.
14-9, and Citronelle is back at home against the number 1 team in the state, Montgomery Catholic.
Okay, well, here's the thing. You know what? You're back at home. Let's go.
Do it.
Let's go.
I mean, but we've talked about all season how iron sharpens iron. This Citronelle team's already played Viger. They've already played Williamson. They will not be scared or afraid at all of Montgomery Catholic next week. This is a phenomenal matchup, and I know the entire town of Citronelle will show up for those guys.
And that's the thing, is that all of these guys are so hard-nosed, and they're not going to be afraid of anybody coming in there. And they're not going to flinch one bit at all. You think about that BC Rain game that went down to the wire that was going to be a huge difference maker in the region standings. They got it done in that game, a 1-point victory. So I know that the Citronelle is fired up. I know they had a big community pep rally on Thursday night.
It worked.
Got some really, really cool pictures and videos from that. And so got a chance to speak to some community members, some school administrators this week. And so just hats off to what Citronelle is building there, what Coach Ryle has been able to build there, and just a lot to be excited of, a ton to be proud of, and their season lives another day as they go to round 2 to play Montgomery Catholic next week. But you get to come back home.
That's right.
And if you're a senior man, to get to come back home, to get to earn that win, like, is there any better feeling? I mean, you had what, 2 state championship playoff runs?
Yeah, that's right. They ended the state championship game twice. And home playoff games are completely different. Just completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's a magical feeling. It's a magical feeling.
Yeah, so 3 of our 4 teams break out the broomsticks. 5A Region 1.
Yeah.
They swept the region, and 3 out of 4 teams are back next week.
Love that.
Amazing.
Love that. All right, guys, so congratulations to Viger, Williamson, Citronelle, and UMS for the 2nd year in a row repping the 251 area and moving on to round 2 of the playoffs. All right, guys, when you talk about great football in the entire state, you cannot leave out the Jackson Aggies. They're the number 1 ranked team in Class 4A, and I don't want to say anything negative about Bullock County, all right? But I sent a photographer out to Jackson. It's going to be real talk, okay? I sent a photographer out to Jackson and out to Leroy, and I told him, go to Jackson first because I think that they're going to score fast. Couldn't guarantee it. I just had a hunch.
Well, your hunch was right.
And my hunch was right.
Well, because as soon
the highlights.
As soon as the ball is in the air,
kicked off, it was going back the other direction.
I think that's any indication that this football team is ready. We talked to, I think that Saraland and Jackson mirror one another. Teams that have been at the top of the rankings the entire season. How focused would they be here in round 1? It's not a gimme game at all, but it's a game where they're heavily favored. I know there's not a Vegas number on these things. But the number one team in the state in both 6A and 4A really came out to play. We saw them at the beginning of the season, and we saw them here today getting things started off with that opening kickoff.
Yeah, unbelievable there. A kickoff return. And shout out to Jamarian Gordon taking that all the way back to the house. And then later, Landon, of course, Duckworth connecting with that is going to be Chris Payne. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Chris Payne there for the touchdown. And so the Aggies at that point would go up 14-0. And my photographer texted me and said, so they're up 14-0. It was 7:08. Like the dime of night was 7:08. He's like, they scored 2 touchdowns. They ran back the kickoff. I'm like, all right, man, head over to Leroy.
Just go to Leroy. Just go.
And he headed over to Leroy, and that took about 10 seconds for him to get some highlights of Leroy. And he was back at the station in Mobile.
That's right.
By like 9:15. Yeah. It's like, Bo, how did you get back here so fast? He's like, well, I realized I forgot my computer, so I couldn't edit the highlights. Luckily, he was at 2 powerhouse programs that are like, state championship bound. And so that was pretty great stuff there. But Jackson gets the win, and they're moving on.
I feel like the Aggies and the Bears both knew that Bo needed to get back to Mobile.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what, sir?
We don't want you to get yelled at by Simone tonight. We're going to get you back to Mobile. Here's a couple touchdowns.
A couple touchdowns for you. Bang, bang. And the defending champs in Class 1A. We'll get to those in a bit. And also Jackson in Class 4A getting it done.
Yeah, for sure. Jackson is going to – what is next for the Jackson Aggies?
All right, up next for Jackson, they will be back at home against Bibb County. Bibb County getting a big win over Opp. So since Bibb County was at home, Jackson was at home. Jackson's top side of the bracket. Jackson back at home next week.
All right, good stuff. Yesterday, the number 2 in the region, that was St. Michael, played in their first ever home playoff. No, excuse me. The second time they were in the playoffs.
That's right.
But they got their first ever playoff victory.
Right,
so a lot to be excited about. Let's check in with St. Michael and Philip Rivers. Yep, it's that one. That Philip Rivers. And of course, the head coach over there for the Cardinals did a great job in just making that program a special thing, as well as this guy, Gunnar Rivers, his son, just a sophomore. But, this game was a back and forth affair down the stretch. But early on, St. Michael getting done on the defensive side, Gerhard, and this team, they can give up some points every now and then, much to the unhappiness of Philip Rivers, but they also get done offensively.
Yeah, I think that we saw it last week, gave up about 28 points to UMS Wright, but, they got a nice little tune-up against a 5A team, and then they end up capitalizing on offense. Tucker Tomlinson into the end zone for the touchdown there, and then, if once it's nice, Simone, twice is better. They hook up again for another score here, and you know what?
They weren't even the stars of the show.
The first 15 seconds of these highlights, interception and 2 Tucker Tomlin touchdowns, that wasn't the story of the game. The story of the game was this guy.
Yes, it was. The guys, Noah Moss has been incredible really all year long, just a constant playmaker for St. Michael. The dude had 6 touchdowns. 6.
Yeah.
I mean, he walked his way into the end zone here, but 6 touchdowns and like 300 yards or something insane like that. I don't even know. All-purpose yards maybe, but I don't even know if you have 6 touchdowns, but this ended up being a shootout, 65-40, which at the end of the day, I mean, if it's a basketball score, it's a basketball score. You're headed to round 2, St. Michael's first ever playoff victory, Gerhard. So I know that Philip Rivers and company are going to say, hey, guys, celebrate, but also let's try to straighten some things up on defense a little bit.
Yeah.
What does the road ahead look like for St. Michael?
All right, we're pulling back the bracket up again. They have Pleasant Grove coming up next week. That game is at Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove, obviously, one of the better teams over the few years. They've bounced up and down from 5A to 4A. Pleasant Grove next week. Pleasant Grove got a big win over Strong, scored 61 points. This might be a high-scoring affair here, Simone, because it's 2 high-scoring football teams. Coach Derek LeBeau does a fantastic job over there with Pleasant Grove. But also one quick thing about St. Michael. First time ever, you mentioned the first playoff win. First time ever they've won double-digit games. 10th win tonight.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So they had 9 wins going into tonight, 10th win. And last year, they lost to the same Hanley football team. It was another basketball score. Final score in that one was 68-38. Hanley got the win.
That was at Hanley.
Exactly. Yeah. And then tonight, or last night, Thursday night, St. Michael ended up getting a win, another basketball kind of score, 63-40.
It takes what it takes, man.
This time around. So they got revenge. They got the win. They got 10 wins. They're going to the second round.
All right, guys. Also in 3A, 4A Region 1, so we talked about Jackson. Of course, they get the win over Bullock County. They're moving on. St. Michael is moving on. W.S. Neal at St. James. W.S. Neal gets the victory on the road, 16-6, the final over St. James. St. James is a program that we are always talking about in the postseason. Yep. W.S. Neal punches their ticket. Eagles moving on.
Yeah, they're the state capital. St. James is in great defensive battle there. So W.S. Neal is moving on. They will go to Fairfield. So a couple of teams kind of going north into that Birmingham, outside of Birmingham area. So Fairfield will host W.S. Neal next week in 4A.
Yep, and also in 4A, Mobile Christian had a little bit of a rough end of the season. Honestly, I think overall, just jumping up into 4A after winning the 3A title was just a different type of ball game, an up and down season. Mobile Christian season actually comes to an end on the road at Tallahassee tonight. Tallahassee is a top 10 ranked team in the state, but 21-14, a strong effort there by the Leopards and a lot of really talented playmakers on both sides. And your heart hurts a little bit because you know what this team talent-wise is capable of.
Yeah,
the season comes to an end in round one, unfortunately.
Yeah, you think about Damian Gaston, guys that have made plays. He was the MVP of the state championship game last year. You think about a guy like PJ Brown, who was a great playmaker for them as well last year. On the offensive line, has some guys back. So hat tip to a team that won the state championship last year. I know they wanted to get back this year, but as you mentioned, 4A football just a little too tough for this year's squad. But I know Charles Lawson and company will be back next year.
Yeah, if you're just hanging in with us, this is fifth quarter extra. Gerhard Mathangani, Simone Eli joining you this evening. Would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to our crews tonight who have just been all over the entire state for us, including our affiliates up in the Birmingham area, sending us highlights. We're going to keep things rolling. We've talked 7 through 4A now. Let's head over to 3A. And all year we have said top-ranked T.R. Miller, and for good reason, because T.R. Miller has not shown any let-up this year whatsoever, be it a rivalry game, be it they have to travel long distance. And honestly, we talk about main guys every single time we talk T.R. Miller, but then every now and then we have someone else kind of pop up into the mix, and we're like, okay, T.R. Miller is just absolutely loaded. That right there was Quavion McCants touchdown run to make it 7-0. Then we're going to go to Miles Johnson, the Florida commit, who just does it everywhere on both sides of the ball. 14-0 at that point. T.R. Miller rolling as they are playing Thorsby this evening. Then one of our play of the week options, McCants, again, the lengthy touchdown run as he breaks loose, somehow tips toe the line. I went back and watched that a couple times, and I really do think he stayed in bounds, by the way.
That's awesome.
And you can watch the replay over there on fifth quarter extra there on our website. And how about this play, man? I'm gonna go back a little bit. This is why he's going to play linebacker in the SEC, I guess, because look at Miles Johnson absolutely bulldoze this kid.
Just unbelievable toughness right there.
Sorry, 7. And then, on the next play, same drive, Miles Johnson back into the end zone, and T.R. Miller gets the victory. This one was over before it started, 49-7. The final, Brent Hubbard and company are moving on. They were in the comfort of their home, Brewton, Alabama. In their first game, G, what is on tap for round 2?
Yeah, unfortunately, they'll have to go on the road. Trinity scoring a little bit of an upset, a big win over Randolph County. Trinity scored more than 60 points. Let me get that final score for you. 65-42 over Randolph County on the road. Slight upset there. So the way the bracket works out, it will be T.R. Miller on the road going to Trinity. So that should be a really interesting matchup.
And there are a lot of folks that are inquiring about the travel and inquiring about how the playoff works in terms of the scenarios and who goes where and all of that. We will discuss that more in depth in just a minute. If you want to stick around for that, don't want to not to get some of these other highlights, but it's a complicated thing. Yeah. Number one, it's kind of like the tiebreakers. Nothing makes sense, but it's nonetheless a lot of it has to do with who has traveled, how far have you traveled, and then a bunch of other factors that we'll explain in a minute. Like Gerhard will explain because he gets it better than I do. So that's what I meant to say. That's just the truth. Okay, guys. One of the games I was probably most excited about tonight was in Thomasville. And the Thomasville Tigers are 90 minutes from our TV station. And we've given them love in terms of mentioning them several weeks. I think they're undefeated in 3A, one of the top-ranked teams in 3A. They deserve all of the pub. At the end of the day, it is such a drive, and our staff is so overworked as it is when it comes to Friday nights. But I was like, we're going to Thomasville. We're going to Thomasville, and we want to see XL. There are two teams that have been so good all year. And so the first thing I want to do is to give a shout-out to the Thomasville faithful for our fan cam, our Greer's fan cam tonight. Let's just take a look at the smiling folks here in Thomasville. So passionate about high school football, Gerhard. You can tell these are folks that have probably been to games every single year for the last who even knows how long.
Yeah. Thomasville is one of those places they clear out the city. Everybody goes to these football games, especially now in the playoffs. And we were lucky to be able to have a situation where we have two local teams playing in the playoffs here as they took on XL. But this is a Thomasville team because they're in Region 3. They got a chance to face this XL football team. But this whole city was fired up for what this Tiger football team could do, trying to ride that momentum from baseball, winning that state championship.
This is what high school football and communities are all about. Look at these kids running out with Thomasville, the flags, man. I mean, that just brings about a tear to your eye. I'm going to sit here and get emotional on fifth quarter extra, but to the action we go. There's no crying in football. What are we talking about? And Thomasville is going to get on the board here, Gerhard. Diego Bryan pushes his way through into the end zone.
Does so. 7-0 early on, but I'll tell you, XL, they came to play here today. This is Aaron Johnson on the carry, busted right up the middle into the end zone for the touchdown. They would actually go for 2 and take the lead. It's now 8-7 Panthers, but the ensuing kickoff, I'll tell you what, that touchdown and celebration was short-lived because, and I'm not making this name up, BJ Cheeseborough, best name in high school football.
Dude, I love that. BJ Cheeseborough in the house.
Ensuing kickoff, back the other way into the end zone. Tigers retake the lead. It's now 14-8. XL, though, coming right back on their own. It's a great shot there of head coach Clint Anderson doing a great job there with the Tigers. However, XL's Anthony Hayes Jr., because their celebration a little bit short, goes into the end zone for the touchdown. So this is back and forth, really tight affair here.
Was it ever, yeah.
But Thomasville ends up getting the win. More kids on our fan cam here.
Love it.
As Thomasville gets the win 34-30 tonight to advance to the second round.
Yeah, so shout out to XL on a great season and so much excitement there. But Thomasville gets it done, and Coach Anderson just took, like you mentioned, Thomasville baseball to a state championship there. So looking to see if they can get it done. I've already kind of looked ahead. I think that the TR Miller matchup would be not next week, but the week after. Is that right? Okay.
Next week.
I'm not counting I am, actually. I'm hoping to see that game.
We're going to be sitting here 7 days from right now talking about TR Miller and Thomasville.
I hope we are. Oh, that would be awesome. Okay, so what's on tap next for Thomasville?
So Thomasville's back at home next week. They'll take on Houston Academy. Houston Academy beat Beulah pretty handily tonight. So nice matchup here between Houston Academy and Thomasville. Houston Academy is over in the kind of the Dothan area, if you're not familiar. So they'll make the trip over to Thomasville. If both the Tigers and the Tigers can get a win, we're back here next week, and it will be a top 5 matchup. I know the polls, you can throw them out this time of year.
Yeah.
Top 5 matchup there. You got to love it.
Yeah, you definitely can. Dwayne, appreciate the comment. Miller, we believe Miller's on the road next week. Is that
According to our friends at the Historical Society, they're on the road. So we're trying to double check as much as we can.
Sure.
But from what we're seeing right now, Trinity will have that game at home. But we've been corrected before. We'll get corrected again.
We will certainly own it if it's wrong, but for now, that is what we are currently looking at in terms of the playoff brackets for sure. All right, guys. So let's talk about the rest of our teams in 3A really quick. We talked about TR Miller, of course, getting it done. A big victory there for Brent Hubbard and company, 49-7. They're moving on. Thomasville beats XL. Now, Thursday Night Lights, we had Hale County taking a trip to Bayside Academy. And Bayside Academy has kind of been a quiet, a quiet storm, so to speak, throughout the entire season, because I don't think a lot of folks knew what the Admirals would be about going into this year, and then they've shown us what they're going to be about, Gerhard, and make no mistake, Barrett Trotter and company moving on to round 2 after welcoming in Hale County Thursday Night Lights action, and Bo Miller, the quarterback here for Bayside Academy, going to connect with a couple of his favorite targets in Monroe Parton, and a little bit later it's going to be Cade Lyons for the touchdown, and Bayside jumped out early. They didn't relinquish at home, and they are headed to round 2 of the playoffs with a 36-6 win over Hale County in round 1. So a lot of excitement for Bayside. I know that they're wanting to see this program rally back to the success of Bayside like we have seen for a super long time, especially under Coach Lazenby for several years. Just so good there, and they're going to move on to round 2. G, what's the playoff bracket looking like for the Admirals?
Up ahead for the Admirals, they'll take on Alabama Christian. Now, Alabama Christian got a road at Glenwood School. Of course, it's one of the teams that's moved up from the AISA into the HSAA. So it's Bayside Academy on the road at Alabama Christian coming up next week. And once again, as we mentioned, these home and aways, we'll dot our I's, cross our T's just to make sure. But
Yep.
this is what we're getting from our friends that have been spot on all year long.
Yeah, and quick shout out to our friends at the Alabama Historical Society website, because they are so good. They work so hard.
Yeah.
And I think they are the lifeline for pretty much everybody in the state.
No
so,
question.
yeah,
No
we
question.
appreciate your efforts, no doubt. Also, Thursday night in 3A, Hillcrest Evergreen falls in a game against Southside Selma, which I watched partially on a live stream on Facebook.
Right.
Thanks to one of the fans over for Hillcrest.
That's
Man,
right.
and it was a heartbreaker, it
Yeah.
looked like, for the Jaguars on the road. I know they scored to come within 1 point there. It was 36-35 at Southside Selma. I think they go for two. Coach Narad felt like that was kind of the best option there to try to
Right.
go for the win. I mean, there's like 40 seconds left in the game, and they don't convert the 2-point conversion, and they lose 36-35. So I know that's a disappointing end. Again, a lot to be happy about,
For
a
sure.
lot to feel like you can work with as you move forward for Hillcrest Evergreen.
Yeah.
But a disappointing end when you think about how this one there's so many games that were just so close for Hillcrest, and you lose the Bayside game. I mean, you're just kicking yourself wanting to see this team really take that next step. But Coach Narad certainly is the guy to get them fired up. He's an alum of Hillcrest Evergreen. He's very passionate about that program.
Yeah, we got a chance to catch up with them during our game of the week, and they played T.R. Miller toe-to-toe for large stretches of that football game, had chances to win it there. So when you're that close against the number one team, you want to advance to the next round. But as you mentioned, Coach Justin Norton's done a great job with this football program. And I know their hearts are hurting tonight, not going to the second round, feeling that they probably were the better football team. However, something to build on going into next year.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have moved our way down from 7A, and we are going to talk about 2A very, very quickly. Let me look at the 2A scoreboard that we had from this evening. Clark County, ranked top 10 in the state, beats Zion Chapel. They're headed to round 2. Luverne gets the win over JU Blackshear. Washington County falls to Goshen. They are moving forward. Washington County's season comes to an end. And St. Luke's, who punched their ticket with a big win here back in Mobile, they fall to Highland Home, the number 1 ranked team in Class 2A, 51-0. But shout out to the Wildcats for getting it done, getting into the playoffs under Coach Gilmore in year 1. All right, guys. In 1A, we went out to Leroy tonight, and like I joked about a little bit earlier, I told our photographer, just pulling the curtain back a little bit, because I think Jackson and Leroy, here I am with my maps back in during the playoffs, Gerhard and I spend more time on Google Maps than we do on anything else. All right, how many miles away is wherever and wherever, and like for our teams that we love, that's the heart and soul of our viewing area. You think about Thomasville, we went there. You think about Bruton, you can see our T.R. Miller and Jackson, and schools that are just all about high school football. Yeah. No better place than Leroy. The Bears coming off a magical season and everything that they've been able to accomplish over there. Win a state title in 1A, looking to do it again, and they are back home for round 1. We were so excited to be over there and check out the community support. I mean, like, not an empty seat there at Leroy, and they're going to punch their ticket to round 2. Let's get the script here from the highlights here. Of course, hosting Pickens Academy in this game. There's Braden Dixon. He would hand it off to Keegan Giles for the touchdown. Dixon later to Corey Yelder. And so Leroy is moving on to the round 2, and I know that this team is absolutely not going to rest on their laurels. They are looking ahead, Gerhard. They know what it takes to win 5 games in a row this late in the year, and they are certainly determined to do it again.
That's the thing. They were here just a year ago, so in round 2, they have Georgiana. That game will be at Georgiana. Georgiana got a big win over Autauga Academy, going on the road and doing so. So Leroy going on the road to Georgiana. Huge matchup next week.
Yes, so super excited for Leroy, and shout out to their fans. I know that they were super, super kind to Bo, one of our photographers who was up there today, and saying, thanks for coming out and stuff. It means as much to us as it means to you guys that we're able to be there to support your programs and show them the love and show your young student athletes the love that they more than deserve every single Friday. So super excited for Leroy getting it done as they go to round 2 in 1A Region 1, looking around the rest of the region there. So Leroy is going to move on. Milry also headed to round 2. They get the big victory, 34-6. And if I'm not mistaken, Milry was on the road because of a tiebreaker or how it went down. Sweetwater was the second-ranked team in 2A, or excuse me, in 1A Region 1, and they were leading Choctaw County last we had checked by quite a bit. I think they get the win as well.
Yeah, so they pulled away late, 48-14 the final.
Okay, so we have Leroy moving on, Sweetwater moving on, Milry gets a dub. Linden does beat Southern Choctaw tonight, 63-14. So Linden obviously a pretty. I know they've been in and out of the rankings there in the top 10 for 1A. So a tough game there for Southern Choctaw. But Leroy's moving on. They're number 2 in 1A. And what did you say was next for the Bears?
Georgiana on the road at Georgiana.
All right. What about Sweetwater?
And then Sweetwater will be on the road as well. They're going to Maplesville. Coach that, obviously, Brent Hubbard coached there for a really long time. A football power in Class 1A. Obviously, it's great football in the South, period, in 1A. But Maplesville, a tough game there for Sweetwater. However, that's 2 proud football programs.
Yes, for sure. And then Milry gets the win over University Charter School on the road. What's next for Milry?
All right, so Milry gets Mackenzie. Mackenzie also with a big win. I think a lot of people factor that one in here in Class 1A. So it's Milry and Mackenzie. That game is at Milry next week.
Okay, very good. So Milry gets the opportunity to be back at home, and so that's always exciting, like we talked about throughout this entire show when you think about the seniors and the opportunity to be at Milry. So we will surely have somebody up at Milry to get Milry highlights and see how they end up there in round 2. A proud program and a lot to be proud of for sure. Okay, guys, so we have pretty much broken down now every Region 1 team and beyond.
That's right.
When you think about 7A through 1A, round 1 of the playoffs in the books. If you're tuned in late, I do want to go back to our game of the week very briefly because it was an absolutely historic finish, Gerhard. I think it's worth at least looking at that at the end of this game one more time. But the meaning behind Hewitt-Trussville traveling to Baker meant a lot for a lot of people, but probably no one bigger than Juan Johnson, the head coach at Baker High School. He had been for first-year head coach at Baker, and he had been at Hewitt-Trussville for the last decade, 8 years under Josh Floyd, the current head coach there. And he served as the offensive coordinator for quite a while there. And, man, this game was into double overtime. And what a finish. Let's shout out our Nick Johnson, our photographer, at this game. We're going to skip ahead to kind of one of the plays of the game. This was the first kind of possession for Baker in overtime. They go to Jawan Springs. He gets the edge and into the end zone, Gerhard, and this one would end up in double overtime, man.
That's right, and the way that overtime works, obviously, since Baker got the football second the first time, they get the football first the second time. They kick a field goal here, so now if you're the Huskies, you know what you need to do. Got to score a touchdown or kick a field goal. Field goal keeps the game alive. Touchdown wins it. They do neither. Bot snap. Football game is over. First playoff win in 4 decades.
Yeah, unbelievable. And it's crazy to think that it's been 40 years, but hats off to Juan Johnson and Baker. They will be the only Region 1 team in 7A to move on to the second round of the playoffs, much like MGM was a year ago. They were the only team in 7A to punch their ticket to round 2, and then they ended up going to the semifinals. And I think they gave Central a heck of a fight in the semifinals in that game. So,
and that was a loaded football team with Cam Coleman and everybody else.
Yeah, no question about that. So hats off to Juan Johnson. We can do a quick kind of recap. We again appreciate you all hanging with us tonight. We've had a great viewership, great comments. We really, really appreciate that. This is Gerhard and I's passion. We love high school football. This is the best time of year,
especially in the playoffs.
No doubt. So in 7A, our team is moving on. Is going to be Baker. In 6A, we have Saraland, of course, gets the big win over Chelsea. They're moving on. Gerhard, if you want to go through a couple of these teams where they're going to be, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So Saraland will play McAdory. That game is at Saraland. Spain Park obviously knocked off McGill-Tulane. So if Saraland can win next week, they'll get the winner of Spain Park, Russell County. The other side of the bracket, or the top part of that bracket, St. Paul's moves on with a big win. They take on Pike Road. That game is at St. Paul's. And then Spanish Fort, they got a big win over Ben Russell tonight. They'll take on Hueytown. Hueytown beating Perry Julian tonight. So that game's on the road over there at Hueytown.
Yeah. So again, that's Spanish Fort, St. Paul's both punching their ticket in 6A when it comes to going to round 2. Ham Barnett and the Saints will get the opportunity to come back home after beating Helena on the road. In 5A, success, and success. 4 teams in Region 1 are going on to round 2.
Sweep City, break out the brooms.
Yep.
5A Region 1. You pat yourself on the back because we said it all year. It's a gauntlet in that region to get to the playoffs.
It really is.
And now they're part of the final 16 teams that are still standing. We'll start with the top side of the bracket. Citronelle will be at home against Montgomery Catholic, the number 1 team in the state. But this is a Citronelle team that's played top 5 Viger, top 10 Williamson as well. They'll be ready.
Been there, done that. Bought that T-shirt.
No question. The aforementioned Williamson Lions got a big win tonight. They're on the road. They will take on Coach Danny Horn, a football legend, one of the best that state has ever seen. That game is in the Lineville-Ashland area next week. So Williamson on the road. We'll try to get you those highlights as well, thanks to our friends up north. Meanwhile, Viger is on the road. They'll take on Eufaula. Eufaula, nice little win over Beauregard.
Yeah.
That's kind of a shocker to some people in and around the area. So Viger will be on the road, and UMS Wright back at home. The number 4 seed, Terry Curtis, Death Taxes and Terry Curtis winning a playoff game. They'll take on Andalusia.
His 75th playoff win.
Right.
There are coaches that won't even sniff 75 career wins.
Exactly.
He's 71, 75 in the postseason.
I mean, that's insane.
Don't come at my guy now, okay? All right.
Unbelievable.
Death Taxes, TC in the postseason.
That's
All right, guys. In 4A, Death Taxes and Jackson Aggies.
Yeah, it's about guaranteed there as well.
Pretty much.
Jackson, no problem tonight. They will be back at home next week against Bibb County. So a big matchup there for Jackson. For those wondering, Tallahassee and Ashford, the other side of that bracket there. So the winner of that Tallahassee-Ashford game will take on Jackson. Knock on wood that the Aggies can move on there. Meanwhile, St. Michael, you mentioned it, first win ever in the playoffs. History making each and every step so far this season. They will be on the road at Pleasant Grove. I think a lot of people forecasted this game. Pleasant Grove, obviously a perennial power there.
Yeah.
We'll see what St. Michael does next week on the road. Also, W.S. Neal kind of going closer to that Birmingham area as well. They will take on Fairfield. So W.S. Neal, St. Michael.
Playing good football right now.
They certainly are. I know they kind of they edged their way into the playoffs, but here they are. And like you said,
W.S. Neal hasn't had I'm not gonna say they haven't had a pulse, but they've had some rough years for a while there. Had some guys, leave the program. Coaching changes, all the just the things that come with that. And then W.S. Neal gets a big win in the regular season, and now they're punching their ticket to round 2.
And you have to credit their schedule because they had to play the Battle of Murder Creek.
I know that ain't fun.
And T.R. Miller, really put it to him last week. Scored 49 points.
Oh yeah, they're not going to sit. Yeah, that ain't the type of game you're going to sit. Your dudes.
But you could be dejected going into that game and let that frustration carry into that second round.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, W.S. Neal, for being able to shake that one off, come back, win a playoff game over a really good St. James team.
Yep.
Now on the road at Fairfield.
Yep, absolutely. Because that's a tough last stretch there for W.S. Neal. All right, G, that was talking 4A, okay. Right. And talking 3A, of course, speaking of T.R. Miller, they are moving on after they get a big win over Thorsby at home. And Thomasville beats XL.
Yeah, I know we had a question in the comments about that game, where the game was. And we said it's at Trinity, and that's where it is. It's at Trinity Presbyterian. We double-checked it with the state site where the official state bracket is. So that game is at Trinity.
So T.R. Miller at Trinity.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
T.R. Miller at Trinity, because Trinity got that big win over Randolph County. I think surprise to maybe some people, a high-scoring game, 65 to 42.
They were the lower seed that was on the road.
They were the 3 seed, yeah. Going on the road to Randolph County.
That one, just for clarification's sake, that's a no-brainer. That one's clear cut. If one team traveled for round 1 and they moved on, and the other team was at home for round 1, unless it's some crazy situation. We've seen it previously, I guess, when you had like 7A and stuff. Unless you've beaten them head to head,
right?
And they're in region. That's the only way the home team would also return home into that game. Yeah. If you went on the road, you're going to be at home if you are going against a team that was at home. That's right.
And I think the way that the bracket breaks down this year, you don't face another region opponent until round 3. Yeah. So then we could see those coming up next week. Yeah. Whoever won the regular season game. Yeah.
You went head to head, you're going to be back home regardless of whether you've traveled or not. And so, it's not that it's not done well. It's just there's a lot of variables, and the HSA wants to make it fair. Yeah. This is something that it's confusing, but it's confusing because they're trying to do right by all the schools. No question. And so you have to kind of work through it. It's one of those things. We'll probably say something wrong throughout the next 4 weeks, but it is what it is.
And they keep tweaking. The HSA keeps tweaking. Look what they did in 7A. They just tweaked the format once again.
Needed to happen.
And honestly, pat on the back to the HSAA, because the format, you can make an argument it worked because you got a nice matchup today as Baker and Hewitt-Trussville, a game you wouldn't have seen otherwise had they not tweaked it.
Yeah, I like it. And when you look at what that entire, I guess, quadrant is what we keep talking. Right. You have pretty much four quadrants, and you have a representative from each team, each region in each quadrant, and it gives everybody a vying chance. And here's the deal. if your entire region is top to bottom better than everybody else in the state, well, guess what? You could have 4 teams,
That's
so
right.
they're in the semifinals playing for a trip to play each other, and we might see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, we had one of our teams, and we had one Region 3 team get out. I mean, did Region 2 sweep Region 4?
Region 2, Region 3.
Region 2. Did they sweep Region 4?
Region 2, that would be
all the Auburn teams.
Yeah.
Central
1, Auburn 1, Enterprise 1,
Opelika 1.
and Opelika 1.
Does not shock me at all.
So they could obviously they have a chance to do that.
So let's just shout out for a moment Baker for being the only non-Region 3 and Region 2 team that is in the round 2.
Yeah.
Hang in there, Hornets.
Because
do it for the Gipper.
Region 4 got swept, and Region 1 almost got swept.
Yeah.
Literally a yard separates them.
That was the difference, man.
And the Hornets defense really comes to play. We talked about it all. How much have we talked about this offense and the high octane offense and the defense?
That's all you talked about in the preseason. It's all we talked about. I mean, and going and previewing that game was how fast, the husky fast, which Juan Johnson helped build over 10 years, has adopted that at Baker. How many points can they put on the board? How fast can they go? And it's 0-0. It's a 0 points. No one scored at halftime of this game. So
and not to mention what they did last week, holding a really good Viger team to just 9 points. This defense has really come to play at the end of the season.
Yes, no question. So shout out to Baker holding it down for Region 1, and really we'll just say we'll represent Region 4 too, since they're not in it all. So
yeah, exactly.
Great Grissom and them and whatever. It's all right, guys. We got a team in there. Okay, here we go. So where do we leave off?
I think we're class 3A
Bayside. We're at Bayside.
Yep.
Bayside is going to be.
Yes, Bayside is going to be on the road at Alabama Christian next week.
That's in Tuscaloosa area.
That's right. Yep. And then T.R. Miller, the number 1 team in the state, going to Trinity Presbyterian, and Thomasville is at home against Houston Academy. So
Thomasville back home. Okay.
Yeah. So Thomasville's back at home against Houston Academy, and T.R. Miller on the road there. So if T.R. Miller and Thomasville, I know we're fast forwarding a little bit, that can be a matchup that we see there in the quarterfinals.
I looked at that like 2 weeks ago.
Unbelievable.
Man, that would be a fun one, no doubt about that. And then in 1A, Leroy is going to move on. 2A.
2A, Clark County.
Yeah, Clark County in 2A. And where will Clark County be?
So, Clark County advancing to 2A, the second round in Class 2A. Ayrton is their opponent coming up next week. The other side of that bracket, the number 1 team, Highland Home. Congratulations, St. Luke's. Joe Gilmore and company got a trip to the playoffs, lost to Highland Home. So it's Highland Home, Providence Christian, the bottom side of that bracket, Clark County, Ayrton, the top side. So if Clark County, the Bulldogs, can go and get another win, they'll face one of those other teams. And then you have Luverne, Reeltown, and Goshen, Cottonwood. That's the top side of the south bracket in Class 2A.
All right, and then in 1A, Leroy punches their ticket. Sweetwater headed to the round 2. Milry headed to round 2, and Linden beats Southern Choctaw.
Milry at home against McKenzie. Sweetwater on the road at Maplesville. Leroy also on the road at Georgiana. And just to let you know, Linden will be at home against Elba.
All right, well, I'm tired.
It's been a fun night. Long night.
It's been a long night, but a fun night, guys. Right. Listen, man, survive in advance. That's the name of the game. Right. We're looking forward to round 2 of the high school football playoffs. This has been super fun. Thank you so much for everyone that stayed with us till almost 1 in the morning.
That's
but
right.
What else is there to do? Talk about high school football round 1. This has been super fun. We cannot wait for round 2 as teams. In 1 through 6A, we'll look to punch their ticket to the quarterfinals. And in 7A, can the Baker Hornets here in Region 1 hang tough against an Enterprise team that has certainly taken their lumps this season? Can they move on to the semifinals? And be the kind of Cinderella story of 7A this year like MGM was a year ago. So, guys, it has been a super fun night. G, you got anything left?
Honestly, just congratulations to the teams that are doing it for the first time. Baker for the first time in 40 years. St. Michael for the first time ever. And congratulations to the GOATs. You got Danny Horn up north. You got Terry Curtis over here. It's such a great just a great mashup.
Yeah, it's a good mix, and then you got the Vigers, and you have the Jacksons, and you have the T.R. Millers, and these teams that know how to win. Can they be there?
Can they do it?
4 weeks from now, hoisting a blue map? Lord knows if they are, we'll be right there doing it.
Love it.
So not hoisting the map, but at least getting video of it. You can let's take a picture with it if you want to. We play a little bit of a role, right? Okay. All right. It's late. Okay. All right, guys. I'm gonna try to figure out how to end this broadcast, but we'll see you next week as round 2 of the high school football playoffs continue on Friday. For Gerhard, I'm Simone. Everybody here at Channel 5. We will see you next week.